Hey, what is up, everybody? This is your boy AJ Trip, and welcome to the Game According to Me. This episode, we're going to talk about a recap of the NFL free agency so far. I'm going by NFL.com's latest article. We're going to run through it in alphabetical order. And before we get started, I hope that you guys are having a okay time getting through this whole pandemic that we are going in through. Hope you're listening to some podcasts, including mine. And so, with that being said, we're going to try to entertain you, talk about some of the things that have happened in free agency so far. So, let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. Um, they re-signed Larry Fitzgerald. He's on a one year contract. He is not retiring just yet. He is still pretty good. He loves Kyler Murray, apparently. They re-signed some of their free agents. Marcus Gilbert, the offensive lineman, and they put the tag on Kendrick Drake, the transition tag. I guess they did that before. Well, no. The thing happened, but I guess you can only do like if there was no CBA, you were going to be able to do the franchise and the transition tag. But once the CBA was ratified, you can only do one or the other. So they didn't put the franchise tag on Kenyon Drake. They put the transition tag on Kenyon Drake. So that's what they did. Well, obviously, the biggest thing they did was they acquired DeAndre Hopkins from the Houston Texans, and this is the one that like shocks the world because they traded him along with a fourth round pick. They did the Texans. They traded Hopkins in a fourth round pick in exchange for David Johnson, a 2020 second round pick, and a 2021 fourth round pick. So, Arizona doing some big things. They look to getting more weapons for Kyler Murray. They think he's something special, and he played well last year. He did. He played well as a rookie. So now with 1 year in their system and Cliff Kingsbury, maybe the spread offense type, the run and shoot type stuff is coming back, and it could be, the spread has already infiltrated the NFL. But still teams who even have incorporated that, they still run the basic like offense. They use like power I or something like that. It's not just all spread, but for most part, Arizona just focuses on the spread. They do everything from the shotgun, apparently. So it's gonna be interesting to see how good they do this year. The Atlanta Falcons made a couple big changes. They lost Austin Hooper, but then they traded for Hayden Hurst. He was in the Ravens, and the other tight end on the Ravens were doing so well they thought they could get rid of Hayden Hurst, and that's what they did. So they traded for Hayden Hurst. They signed Todd Gurley, who was released by the Rams. They let go of Devontae Freeman, and then they also signed Dante Fowler, the edge rusher, who was also with the Rams. So they've signed Fowler, Gurley, and Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst should give more weapons to Matt Ryan, and hopefully Todd Gurley, if he can, get back to even like 80% of his form. 80% of his form. I think, but because of the knee injuries and things like that, Todd Gurley may be on the decline even earlier than a normal running back would be. But I still think he's got something there. So they need to get another running back to put with him to kind of shoulder the load. Because I think one thing the Rams did last year, which is what I liked, is that they kind of split time with Todd Gurley until they get down to like the last 6-7 games of the season. Then they put all the focus on Todd Gurley. That was most of the part. That was also because Jared Goff kind of took a decline as well, did the Rams. So, but I like to see that for the Falcons. If they could do that, they could get another running back, whether it be in the draft or in free agency, to set it to go along with Todd Gurley. I think they could have something special. That NFC South, as we all know, is just incredibly loaded. The Baltimore Ravens are next. They acquired Calais Campbell in a trade from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like I said, they let go of Hayden Hurst. They traded him to the Falcons. They re-signed their cornerback Jimmy Smith. They agreed on a deal with Derek Wolfe. Probably one of the biggest losses they took was Marshall Yonder, the All-Pro offensive lineman guard, decided to retire. So that's going to be a big loss. They need to pick up an offensive lineman, an offensive guard to replace Marshall Yonder in the draft. But again, they should be still in that mix in the NFC North. In the AFC North, excuse me. In the AFC North is going to be a competitive division, I think. I think it's going to be a competitive division with Cleveland, maybe with a new coach, and they've got some pickups as well, so maybe they will be, back to being what they should be, what everybody thought they were going to be last year. And then, of course, Ben Roethlisberger, if he comes back from his injury, he should be, the Steelers should be back. So it's going to be a competitive division. We don't know about the Bengals. They get the number one pick. They're going to go with Joe Burrow. So we'll see where the Bengals are at. But at least those three, the Ravens, the Browns, and the Steelers, should be very competitive. And I don't think the Ravens are just going to run away with it like they did last year. So let's go with the Buffalo Bills, right? They agreed to terms with Mario Addison, an edge rusher. They acquired Stephon Diggs in a trade from the Vikings. That's a really good pickup for them. They agreed with Josh Norman, who was released by the Ravens. He's now going to be, not the Redskins, excuse me. He's now a Bill. And yes, they picked up some other offensive linemen, and they picked up some other defensive linemen to bolster an already strong offensive and defensive line. So Josh Allen, this is going to be his time now with no Tom Brady and no New England Patriots, and Miami and the Jets floundering, in mediocrity. This is the time for the Buffalo Bills to step up and win that division, and Josh Allen has to take that next step. We all saw that game against the Houston Texans in the playoffs, and the second half, in particular the fourth quarter, we have no idea what Josh Allen was doing at some times. The first half he looked amazing, but now we just don't know what in the world was he thinking. So he's got to get better, and he's got now Stephon Diggs to help him get better. So and they might pick up some more players in the draft as well, but it's all going to be on Josh Norman. It's all not Josh Norman, all Josh Allen. Josh Norman's in the corner, but he doesn't have to do nothing but just try to get back into the way he was several years ago when he was a legitimate shutdown corner. And he was with the Carolina Panthers. Speaking of the Panthers, we all know that they have released Cam Newton. So Cam Newton would no longer be a Carolina Panther. They signed Teddy Bridgewater to replace him. They also signed the XFL quarterback P.J. Walker, who was the Matt Rule when he was the coach at Temple. That was his quarterback there. So they signed him. They also signed Robbie Anderson, who was formerly with the Jets. They signed him. They traded. They traded the guard Trey Turner for Russell Okung, who was on the Los Angeles Chargers. So they wanted to get an offensive tackle for him. So and also Greg Olsen. He went to Seattle. We'll talk about Seattle obviously when we get to Seattle, but they lost Greg Olsen. So it really is. We have to see what they are planning on doing, because there was some thought that maybe they would be tanking for. They would be tanking for Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, by getting Teddy Bridgewater, that doesn't seem to be the case. They are looking to compete in the division, and they're not thinking about Trevor Lawrence. So it's going to be interesting to see what Carolina is this season. The Chicago Bears, my Bears. Let's see what they've done. They've traded for Nick Foles. They signed Artie Burns from the Steelers. They signed Jimmy Graham, who's played with the Packers. They signed Jermaine Ifedi, an offensive lineman. Their edge rusher, Robert Quinn, who was at Dallas. And they re-signed Denny Trevathan. And also re-signed Devin Bush. They let Hyde Clicking Ditch go. They let Nick Kwiatkowski go. They obviously have let their other quarterbacks, Chase Daniel, go and everything else. So, but the Bears, listen, the Bears are it's really down, and they let go of what's his face, Leonard Floyd. He left as well. Really, for the Bears, they can do all the things they want to, but it comes down to the quarterback position. It comes down to whether Mitch Trubisky is going to step up and become what he should be at the as a second overall pick. And some of us don't even think that the second overall pick should be on the verge of being a Hall of Famer, right? That's what you think. When you're talking about top 5, maybe even top 10 pick, you should be, you know, when your career is over, you should be talking about, you know, there should be people on TV saying, is he a Hall of Famer or is he a not Hall of Famer? You know, that's how good your career should have been. And right now, that's not what Mr. Trubisky is on the verge of being, you know, a kind of a bust, really. Especially when you think about who was drafted after him with the Texans getting Deshaun Watson and the Chiefs getting Patrick Mahomes, and the Bears trading up to pick Mitchell Trubisky. That's just a big thing. So it comes down to the quarterback, and that's why they traded for Nick Foles. They feel that Nick Foles can, if Mr. Trubisky isn't the guy, Nick Foles can do it. He's played in that system a couple times. He knows the terminology, he knows the system, so he would be able to fit right in and jump right in if Mitch doesn't get it, or even he may even take the job from Mitch at the start of the season. So when it comes to those Bears, you know, it's going to be about that quarterback position and health. As with all teams, it's health, but for the Bears, it really is health, because, you know, they from time to time are not very healthy. They do lose a lot of players, and a lot of players are injury prone. So they need to try to stay as healthy as they can, and need to see what can happen with that with that quarterback position. The Cincinnati Bengals, we talked about, they had the number 1 draft pick. They're more than likely going to take Joe Burrow, right? But look what else they've done. They've placed the franchise tag on A.J. Green. They signed Trey Wayans from Minnesota. They signed DJ Reader, a defensive tackle, and Von Bell, a safety, and Mackenzie Alexander from the Bengals. I know, but I didn't know who the cat was. I don't know where she is. She's probably behind the chair. Yeah, see, there she is. Okay, so yeah, like I was saying about the Cincinnati Bengals, they made all of those signings. So, we'll just have to see. I don't expect them to be competitive in that division, at least to begin with. Maybe as time goes on, they can be competitive towards the end of the season. But this is going to be the first year of Joe Burrow, and I think there's going to be obviously some issues, and we'll just have to see what happens. They could shock the world, and because of Joe Burrow and everything that happens, they could shock the world, and they could come up and win that division. I'm not expecting it, but we'll have to wait and see. The Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns had a pretty good offseason. They signed Andrew Billings. They signed defensive tackle. They signed Jack Conklin, an offensive tackle. Austin Hooper, the tight end from Atlanta. They signed them. They placed a second-round tender on the Kareem Hunt at running back. They made some. They made signings for the safeties, Carl Joseph, and defensive back Kevin Johnson. Andrew Sendejo also signed, and then they signed the backup quarterback Case Keenum. So again, for me, this is all about the Cleveland Browns. It's all about because they have the talent, and it's all about in that word potential. It's all about living up to that potential, and what do they need to do to live up to that potential? Because I think they have the talent to win that division. I think they really do. Um, but it all depends, and I think Baker Mayfield is a good quarterback. He didn't have the year that he had his rookie year, but I think he is a good quarterback. I don't think he is someone who was a flash in the pan. But I think it could have been maybe the coach, and then the coach. They were really undisciplined. That very first game, they had like 15 penalties, and they had somebody get ejected. So it's just, and then let's not talk about Myles Garrett and everything, who will be back. He is going to be back from his uh, suspension that he had for hitting Mason Rudolph in the head. So he is going to come back next year. He will not miss any games to start the year. But it is going to be all. I think it's going to be all. Can they live up to their potential, or will they just fold? Once again, will they fold under the pressure? So it's going to be something to be looking out for. And can Cleveland, can Browns give Cleveland something to cheer about? You know, because the Cavs are not going to do it, and the Indians. I think the Indians have a good team, but I think Cleveland, like Chicago, I think is a football town. I think it's a football town. They love all their sports, but I think they're a football town through and through. And so I think they want the Browns, to be more successful than anything. The Dallas Cowboys. So they've signed Mari Cooper, 5-year, $100 million deal. They re-signed Blake Jarwin and Sean Lee. They agreed with Jared McCoy, the defensive tackle, and Dontari Poe, defensive tackle, shoring up that front four once again. They've signed a couple of kickers as well. I guess going to have a kicking competition. They've signed Clinton Dix, who's playing with the Bears, Anthony Brown, a cornerback. But the biggest thing is they have franchise tag Dak Prescott, and they are looking as of this recording, they are still trying to come up with Dak on a contract, a long-term contract extension, but they are too off. There was a report earlier I saw on ESPN that said that even though they are far apart, it's not contentious. So I think there's a way where I don't think you would see Dak Prescott holding out. I think they would still probably even try to talk and get a contract done all the way up until the beginning of the season, just like they did with what's-his-face, just like they did with the Ezekiel Elliott. So I think you'll see that. And I'll predict that before the season starts, Dak Prescott will sign a long-term deal with the Dallas Cowboys. And the Dallas Cowboys, they have to, they more than anybody have to be consistent, because you want to talk about talent. They have a great amount of talent too, but sometimes they just played down to like the level of competition, and it was just sometimes it was not good, and they were losing to teams that they should not have lost to. They were and like my Bears and like other other teams out there, the Buffalo Bills maybe, but it's that division. I don't think it's gonna be as bad as it was this past year. I think the division is going to be a lot better with Washington and the Giants and everything like that. So I think, but I think it's still between Philly and Dallas, and I think Dallas needs to, they need to, pardon my French, but piss or get off the pot. You know what I mean? So I think it's time for them to step up their game. Let's go to the Denver Broncos. They acquired A.J. Bouye in a trade from Jacksonville. They tried Jarrell Casey in a trade with the Tennessee Titans. They agreed to terms with Melvin Gordon. And they also released Joe Flacco. So they released Joe Flacco. They're going with The other guy, I can't think of his name right now, but the quarterback, Drew Lock. They're going with Drew Lock at quarterback. So this is going to be a big time. Can Drew Lock finally give John Elway, his quarterback that he had? Because John Elway has not. He signed Peyton Manning, but he has not drafted a quarterback. And you would think that maybe you don't think that, but again, being the quarterback that John Elway is, a lot of people are surprised that he cannot find a quarterback in the draft to beat, to take over the reins. So maybe Drew Lock is that guy. We'll have to wait and see. They're in that division with that man, Patrick Mahomes. So I don't think they have a shot of winning that division, but maybe they can fight for a wild card spot. Who knows? The Detroit Lions, they did some work this year, mainly taking a lot of the Patriots, right? But so they made a lot of signings. Geronimo Allison from the Packers, Jamie Collins, a former Patriot, Chase Daniel, a former Bear. They acquired Duron Harmon from the Patriots, Jerrion Kearse, Miles Killebrew, Reggie Ragland, Danny Shelton, Desmond Trufant. Oh my Lord Jesus. Halapule Vatai, offensive tackle. I think he might be even a defensive tackle. And Nick Williams. So there a lot of defense here, a lot of former Patriots as well. So and I think this is Matt Patricia's final year to try and do something. So if I think for him to get another year, a contract extension, yada, 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 anything he wants, he's going to have to take this Detroit Lions team and he's going to have to make them a whole lot better. And it's going to be tough because that division is tough. Again, you're talking about a Vikings team that is really good, the Packers team, which is good, but it makes, because they have Aaron Rodgers, it's even better. And of course, the Bears have a very tough defense. It seems like that's the only team that the Bears can dominate the Lions over the past 2 years. So it's going to be tough for the Lions, but they're just going to have to again piss or get off the pot. And we talked about something else here. We talked about there are some things that thinking that maybe the Lions would want to draft Tua. The Lions have the 3rd overall pick. So, and the first 2 picks seem to be Joe Burrow, Cincinnati, Chase Young, defensive end from Ohio State, going to Washington. And there's some talk that maybe at number 3, the Lions would take Tua Tagovailoa. And what they would do is they would sit Tua behind Matthew Stafford. They would try to go one more year with Matthew and this thing. And then if that didn't happen, then what you would see is that you would see Matt Patricia be gone, and then they would either release or trade Matthew Stafford, or what, and then it would be Tua's team, something like that. So it's a very interesting thought about the Detroit Lions and what they need to do. I'm not sure what the right thing is for the Detroit Lions, but I do know this: they need to make something if Matt Patricia is going to stay the coach there. Because they haven't done so just yet. The Green Bay Packers. They've re-signed Mercedes Lewis. They signed Devin Funchess. They signed Christian Kirksey and the offensive tackle Rick Wagner. I think they're going to, they are someone who in the past has not done a lot of stuff in free agency. That's been one of the things that has, in the past, that has been a criticism of the Green Bay Packers. Now, the last couple of years, they have done a lot more in free agency than they have done in the 12, 14 years in beforehand. They like to do their stuff in the draft. And then they haven't done too much, in the free agency this year. Now, Devin Funchess and Mercedes Lewis and Christian Kirksey are all nice players they can add. But again, I think you're going to see them try to add more in the draft. And I would say on the offensive side, because they really need to give more help to Aaron Rodgers. They really do. Because they just lost Geronimo Allison, and Devontae Adams is there. They lost Jimmy Graham, although they're keeping Mercedes. They're keeping Mercedes Lewis. So, but I would expect their draft to be all offense, and also they lost, but Brian Balaga, I think, the offensive lineman. So I would say their draft is going to be primarily on the offensive side. Uh, when the draft comes. So, but the Green Bay Packers, as long as they have Aaron Rodgers healthy, I think that they always have a shot to win the division and to go far in the playoffs. The Houston Texans, we talked about it with Arizona. They traded DeAndre Hopkins, for David Johnson. So a lot of people think they don't know what they were thinking, and there are even some rumors that it's about maybe because of the fact that DeAndre Hopkins has two children from two different mothers, whatever. But it's a very strange trade for the Houston Texans, but that's okay. They also agreed with Randall Cobb on a 3-year deal. They re-signed their kicker. They re-signed the tight end Darren Fells. They agreed to terms with Vernon Hargreaves. That was an in-season trade from last year from Tampa Bay, so they have re-signed them. They have re-signed R.J. McCarron. They've signed some other players as well. And again, we're talking about this. They should be fighting. They should be in the mix with Deshaun Watson at the helm. They should be in the mix for the AFC South Division crown. It's going to be them and Indianapolis more than likely. So, I think, and I think Tennessee could be there too. Tennessee should be in that mix as well. Those three are going to be fighting for it very well. So I do think that it is going to be a fight like hell in that division, and so we're to see what Houston is going to do now that they've traded their best player. Speaking of the Indianapolis Colts, they acquired DeForest Buckner, defensive tackle from the 49ers. They agreed to Anthony Costanzo. They signed Xavier Rhodes, a cornerback who was with the Vikings as well. And the big one, they signed Phillip Rivers to a 1-year deal. And so I think Phillip Rivers knows Frank Reich, and he might knows a little bit of that offense. So I think Phillip Rivers, I think he's an upgrade, even though he had some really bad interception games last year. I think he still got something there. I'm sure he wants to play, so he's going to be there in Indianapolis, and I think he puts Indianapolis. Even though I like Jacoby Brissett, I think he puts Indianapolis in a spot for where they can actually truly compete for the division and even compete for the AFC championship. So I like that move with Phillip Rivers, and we'll see where Indianapolis goes in the draft and what they do. We got 1, 2, 3 consecutive teams from the AFC South. We've got the Jacksonville Jaguars. They signed Tyler Alford who was with the Bengals. They placed a franchise tag on Yannick Ngakoue, although he has announced that he does not want to sign the franchise tag and he does not want to play in Jacksonville. So we'll see what happens with him. They've also signed Joe Schobert, a linebacker, and a couple other signings. But I think this is what they're doing here in Denver, in Jacksonville, is they are either playing for Trevor Lawrence, or they are looking to truly rebuild from the ground up with Gardner Minshew. So we'll have to see what happens we'll see what happens next year if they decide to get the number 1 pick. Will it be Trevor Lawrence, or they're going to stick with Gardner Minshew and everything like that? So, but I think this is going to be another down year for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I think they're just going. I kind of think this may be the last year for that coach as well, Doug Marrone. I think they'll probably, unless he has like a surprising season, this is probably his last year as well. But yeah, I think this is probably this is probably a tank for Trevor type of thing down in Jacksonville. So, the Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs, what did they do? Well, they picked up the option for Damian Williams. They re-signed DeMarcus Robinson, the wide receiver. They placed the franchise tag on Chris Jones. And they got a new backup quarterback for Patrick Mahomes, Chad Henne. So, again, I think really what's it about? It's about their big three. It's about Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and that man, Patrick Mahomes. If those three can stay healthy, in particular Patrick Mahomes, obviously, but if those three can stay healthy, they'll be right back in Super Bowl contenders. And I'm telling you right now, we'll see what happens later on down the line, but for me, I think it's almost a no-brainer that you have to choose them to go on and win the championship, right? And we'll see what else they do, because they probably do need to get a little bit better on defense. They wasn't bad on defense, but when you do think about this, right? They fell behind to Houston, 24 points, and it was that offense that came back. Now the defense stopped them. The defense did stop them, and the special teams did stop the Texans long enough. But you don't want to have to keep falling behind and have your superstar quarterback come from behind in every game. So they do need to, I think, bolster the defense. They'll probably do that in the draft. They'll probably add another weapon for Patrick on offense, at the receiver and the running back position. I think even though Damian Williams was good, I thought in my opinion, I thought Damian Williams should have won the MVP. Actually, he could have won the MVP. I think it probably is nice to probably get another running back as well, maybe a bigger type of running back for short yardage and stuff like that. So, but Kansas City is the now number one team, and it's because of Patrick Mahomes. The Las Vegas Raiders, what did they do? Okay, so they Raiders. All right, so they did they signed Nelson Aguilar from the Philadelphia Eagles. They agreed to terms with Eli Apple. They signed Jeff Heath, Eric Kush, offensive lineman. They signed the Bears' Nick Kwiatkowski, Corey Littleton, a linebacker as well. They signed Marcus Mariota to either back up or take the job from Derek Carr. They signed Carl Nassib, and they signed Jason Witten from from the Dallas Cowboys. So that's interesting that he's not going to be a Cowboy, a lifelong Cowboy. So that's funny. So we'll have to see what that is. He's obviously going to he's going to play beside Darren Waller, who had a great year last year for the Raiders at tight end. And Carl Nassib is an interesting one. For the only reason is because of that when a couple years ago they was doing the Browns, and he was the person who was up there. He was telling people about how to, as Marshawn Lynch would say, save your chickens. So he was up there and he was trying to explain to them how to save money and how every year it would grow exponentially and something like that. So. That's what I know Carl Nassib for. That's what a lot of us know Carl Nassib for. So there's just an interesting thought for that as that. But I think the biggest thing here is that it's the Marcus Mariota signing, right? Because we all have got that feeling that maybe John Gruden doesn't like David Carr. We all get that feeling, and we also know that John Gruden. He's kind of someone that likes to love him and leave him, so to speak, right? He'll have a quarterback for a little while and he'll love him and enjoy him, but then he gets tired of him and wants to go to the next one if they're not doing the exact thing. So this could be very interesting to see if David Carr ends up playing the entire year with the Raiders, or if he does go to Marcus Mariota, or even if Marcus Mariota ends up taking his job in preseason from David Carr. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that does go down. The Los Angeles Chargers. We talked about this earlier. Brian Bulaga from Green Bay Packers, he signed with the Chargers. Austin Eckler re-signed. That's the reason why Melvin Gordon went to Denver. Chris Harris, a Denver Bronco, signed with the Chargers. They placed the franchise tag on Hunter Henry. They re-signed Linval Joseph, defensive tackle from the Minnesota Vikings, and then they acquired the Trey Turner in the trade for Russell Okung from the Carolina Panthers. They lost Phillip Rivers to the Indianapolis Colts, correct? So, what needs to happen at quarterback? Well, there's a lot of thought about what could go down. They've talked about saying that they are going to go with Tyrod Taylor. as their quarterback. Obviously, they have an early draft pick. They could take Justin Herbert or Justin Love or Jordan Love. I'm sorry if I'm getting his name wrong. The quarterback from Utah State. They could they could draft him. And then, of course, you have the free agent quarterbacks who are out there. Jameis Winston, Cam Newton. Are they going to go maybe do something with them? So there's a lot of things that they out there that can be had for the Los Angeles Chargers. They have some talent, and they were just in the playoffs, the year before last, and made it to the second round where they faced the New England Patriots. So there are, that team had a lot of losses that was one score or less. They didn't get blown out. So I would say that they are probably on the cusp. They are a team on the cusp. And again, last year, Phillip Rivers really had some turnover issues and other things. So maybe that's the reason why they weren't as good as they were in the past and the year before. So if you're gonna stick with Tyrod Taylor, who are you gonna go with? I think it all does depend on that quarterback position. Can that quarterback position make enough plays for them to win games, and can it possess the ball long enough for it not to, give the other team the opportunity to win? I mean, that's why they don't want Jameis Winston, because Jameis Winston is a turnover machine. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the Los Angeles Chargers as we go on through the rest of the offseason. The Los Angeles Rams, what did they do? They signed Michael Brockers on a 3-year deal. They signed Leonard Floyd from the Bears. They signed Ashawn Robinson, defensive tackle. They signed their offensive lineman, Andrew Whitworth. And we know about some of the things that they're done. They let go of what's his face? They let go of Todd Gurley, and they let go of some other guys. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what the Rams do. But I think once again, it depends on Jared Goff. Jared Goff took a step back last year, and he's going to have to keep up, because a couple years ago, again, he looked as if he was a star on the rise, a star in the making, as if he was a special type of quarterback. And even then, at the end of the season, it kind of started with the Bears game in Chicago. He started to look kind of normal and kind of look a lot less than he was. And then last year was just an incredible drop. So it's all going to be on Jared Goff. And can Sean McVay bring Jared Goff back up to the place where he had him 2 years ago, where he was a contender for the MVP. The Miami Dolphins, they've done some work. Re-signing Adrian Colbert, signing offensive tackle Eric Flowers, signing running back Jordan Howard, signing Byron Jones from the Dallas Cowboys, signing Shaq Lawson, an edge rusher, and Emmanuel Ogba, another edge rusher, signing other linebackers, Eldon Roberts and Cal Van Noy. So they are not, they've got this early pick. There are some thoughts. They had the number 5th pick. There are some thoughts that they want to trade up to get Tua, and maybe for fear that someone else would trade up, or that Detroit will take Tua at 3. There are some thoughts about that. There are some thoughts that they can still get Tua at 5, or there's even some thoughts as if maybe they should trade back and get one of those other guys, Justin Herbert or Jordan Love. Get one of those guys later on, and so that you don't have to worry about the thing with Tua in his hip, because we are in a situation right now where they can't work anybody out. Teams cannot work players out. They can't talk to them. They can't do a lot of things because of the whole stuff with the coronavirus and everything. So what can you do, right? So there's a lot of talk about that. And they're not looking to tank for Trevor Lawrence. That's not what they want to do. Especially with Tom Brady out, they know they have a chance to win the division. I think they're going to go for it. Uh, and they can get their quarterback of the future with one of the guys, Tua, Herbert, or Love this year. They're going to go with Ryan Fitzpatrick as the starter to begin with, and then we'll see where things fall. They still have Josh Rosen as well, a top 10 quarterback from a couple years ago, who was drafted by Arizona. So there's a lot of things that can happen. Um, and then they made some significant upgrades on the defensive end as well. So it's going to be very, very funny, I guess is the word. It's going to be very funny to see what happens on draft night. To see, what does happen. Do they make the trade up? Does Detroit take Tua, or what happens? So all in all, it's going to be very interesting to see what goes down with the Miami Dolphins. The Minnesota Vikings re-signed Amir Abdullah. They signed Dan Bailey. They placed the franchise tag on Anthony Harris. They re-signed Sean Mannion, a quarterback, the backup quarterback to Kirk Cousins. They signed Michael Pierce, Tajay Sharp, and Eric Wilson. And also what has happened is they've also added on to Kirk Cousins' contract. So they've basically made him the quarterback for the next several years. And listen, we talked about this before when it comes to Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. He is a darn good quarterback. And I think some of the things that they do sometimes when people talk about Kirk Cousins, I think is totally wrong, and I don't get it. And I think he kind of proved that he can win. I don't think he's not someone that is like Patrick Mahomes, who can put a team on his back and win by himself. But he is a darn good quarterback, and most of the teams I think would trade their quarterback for Kirk Cousins in a second. And if they don't, they are morons for not doing so. They did trade Stephon Diggs to the Buffalo Bills, so they need to give him more weapons. Even though they like to run the ball, he still needs more weapons to throw to. He just can't be Kyle Rudolph and Adam Thielen. He needs another wide receiver or two. So it's going to be interesting to see what goes down with Minnesota come this offseason. They're in that NFC North with the Packers and the Bears, and some people are predicting a fall off cliff for the Minnesota Vikings. I'm not so sure. And again, maybe they won't be as good. Maybe they won't be a playoff team. But I still expect them to be a force in that division. Well. The New England Patriots. What do we have here? Well, listen, the biggest thing here is that they've lost Tom Brady. We'll talk more about that when we get to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But they've signed Bo Allen, Jameer Byrd, a wide receiver. They signed Brian Hoyer. They agreed with Devin McCourty, Adrian Phillips, Matthew Slater, Joe Thurney, and others as well. So, but really the thing is right now, they're talking about who is going to replace Tom Brady. Who is going to replace the guy who was there for 20 years? Who are they going to get to replace? Are they going to go with Jarrett Stidham? Are they going to risk maybe trying to get Andy Dalton from the Bengals? Are they going to try and get Cam Newton? Or are they going to get someone else? Is it going to be a surprise? Is it going to make some sort of surprise trade? Who's going to be the quarterback for the New England Patriots? This is something that is probably the biggest story going into this season. Who is going to be the starting quarterback opening day for the New England Patriots? Who would it be? So right now, it's going to be Jarrett Stidham, the quarterback they drafted a year or two ago, who was Tom Brady's backup last year. Are they going to go with Jarrett Stidham, or are they going to try to go with someone else? I can't wait to see what happens. I really cannot. I cannot wait to see what the New England Patriots do. if they sign somebody off the street, do they go with somebody else, or are they going to go with Jared Stidham? It's going to be this is one of the things that's going to make this season truly fun, I think, for me. So next we have the New Orleans Saints, and the New Orleans Saints they let go of Teddy Bridgewater. They let go of Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater is a Carolina Panther. But their other quarterbacks they re-signed. They re-signed Drew Brees, and they put a first-round tender on Taysom Hill. So that's going to be their quarterbacks for the near future. They signed Malcolm Jenkins from the Philadelphia Eagles, and as we know, Malcolm Jenkins started his career in New Orleans. So he started in New Orleans. He played several years in the Eagles, helped them win a championship, and now he is back in New Orleans to probably end his career. They also re-signed David Anamata, the defensive tackle. Signed Andrews Pete, an offensive tackle. They signed Emmanuel Sanders, who after a trade was with San Francisco last year, and they have signed DJ Swearinger, safety. So it's going to be interesting to see what goes down with the Saints as well, because now we're talking about a division, the NFC South, which is probably going to be the best division in there, because all those teams, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, the Panthers, and then the Saints, they're going to be just beating each other's brains in probably all season long. This is one of those things where the winner of that division is probably going to be a 9-7 team, because they're going to beat each other up so bad. So I cannot wait to see it. And Drew Brees, 2 more years, he's going to try to get another Super Bowl in those 2 years. So maybe, just maybe, we might see. And who knows? Obviously, if he wins the Super Bowl this year, there's probably a great chance he'll ride off into the sunset. But we will see what goes down when the season starts with that. And I think we also we may see more Taysom Hill as well. The New York Giants, what did they do? They signed James Bradbury, cornerback. They also signed a defensive back, Nate Helber. They signed Cal Fackrell and Cam Fleming, Deion Lewis, Blake Martinez, Colt McCoy, Levine Tololo, and Leonard Williams. They placed the franchise tag on him. So they've done some stuff in there, but I think really what it comes down to with the New York Giants is Daniel Jones. What did Daniel Jones do, and what can he do, right? And what is going to happen come the season with that, right? You know, is he going to step up? Is he going to make the next step? Because at times Daniel Jones did look good last year, but there were also times when he didn't look very well. And he talking about turnovers. He had major turnover issues as well. So again, I don't think they are in any position at this point, talent-wise, to compete. At least at the beginning, maybe towards the end of the season, they can compete. But as long as they have that guy at running back, Saquon Barkley, he is going to do what he can, all he can to help that team win. So as long as they got that man in that backfield, the New York Giants, I think, are going to be very decent this year. The New York Jets. Once again, the Jets, no Tom Brady, 3rd year for Sam Darnold. This is a time for him to step up. He can't be seeing ghosts anymore. Right? Can't be seeing any ghosts anymore. Now, he lost Robbie Anderson. So they're going to have to pick up some wide receivers in the draft for him. Even though they did sign Brashad Perriman. But they're going to need more wide receivers. So let's look at what they did. They signed Josh Andrews, an interior lineman. They signed offensive lineman. I should make that note. Pierre Desir, a cornerback. George Fant, a tackle. Jordan Jenkins, an edge rusher. Alex Lewis, a guard. Connor McGovern, a center. Patrick Onswar, a linebacker. Brian Poole, a cornerback. And Greg Varanton, offensive lineman. So there's some people here I have not heard of and things like that. So they really are going to have to pick up the pace. Get some draft picks, have some of the past draft picks step their game up. Again, like I said, most importantly, it's going to have to be Sam Darnold stepping up and in his third year becoming the star that he was. He was drafted, third overall? So, yeah, it's going to have to be him and what they need to do to make it. So it's just going to have to be Sam Darnold. The Philadelphia Eagles. Well, we talked about their loss. They lost what's his face. They lost Nelson Aguilar. They lost Malcolm Jenkins, and they lost some other ones. But they didn't get some pickups here. They did pick up Jalen Mills. Actually, I think Jalen Mills was theirs, so they just re-signed him. They agreed with Nikhil Roby-Coleman. They acquired Darius Slay from the Lions in a trade. They re-signed Ned Sudfeld to back up what's his face? Carson Wentz. Josh McCown has a hip injury, so he may not be re-signed. He may not even play again. So again, they're the defending NFC East champions. So and again, that division is going to be either them or the Cowboys. Carson Wentz played the entire season until they got to the playoff game in which he got hurt. Totally unfortunate, but he made a great achievement. He threw for 4,000 yards, and he didn't have one receiver over 700 yards or something like that. It was an amazing feat for Carson Wentz, and we know that he had great talent. He was on his way to winning the MVP in the year they won the Super Bowl before he got injured. So I think there is something there with Carson Wentz, and hopefully they can get some more people around him. They lost Jordan Howard to Miami, but I also think that Jordan Howard isn't that big of a deal. I think he's a dinosaur in this NFL. This NFL running backs need to be fast, and they need to be fast, and they need to catch the ball. You need to be either those three. They need to be fast. They need to be able to catch the ball, or they need to be both. He does none of those. So he's just a power running back, and that's not used in today's game anymore. So he's a dinosaur. So that's a plus. Losing Jordan Howard is a plus for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I still think they're in the mix for the NFC East. So. Maybe even a wild card spot, but I have no worries, no troubles about what the Eagles are going to do. It's all it is for me is just can Carson Wentz continue to stay healthy. The Steelers, well, what did they do? Well, they placed the franchise tag on Bud Dupree, the edge rusher. They signed Eric Ebron, the tight end who was at the Colts. They brought two of the three Watts together. Derek Watt, the fullback, now plays with T.J. Watt. Of course, J.J. Watt is in Houston. They signed Stefan Wisniewski, and they also acquired Chris Wormley, the defensive tackle from the Ravens. But probably the two biggest pickups they're going to have is they're going to need to get Big Ben and the running back, James Conner. They're going to get those guys back from injury. So it's we're gonna have to wait and see how the injury affects Big Ben and his. He seems to be working back and seems to be getting back into his ways. So we'll find out how that goes. And of course, James Conner. Listen, James Conner came back from cancer, so we know that he can come back from some good stuff. And hopefully, James Conner is out there. Hopefully. Him, along with all cancer survivors, Roman Reigns from the WWE, and many others out there who have survived cancer. They are most susceptible now to the coronavirus. So hopefully James Conner is staying safe. He's staying inside, as does all of you. So yeah, let's try to hurry up and run through the rest of these teams. Only have about 5 minutes left. San Francisco re-signed Eric Armstead and Jimmy Ward. They traded DeForest Buckner. San Francisco again is going to be, can Jimmy Garoppolo keep it continue? Can he stay in his lane? And can can that defense continue to stay up and do it again? Can they stay healthy? That's going to be the 49ers. The Seahawks, they signed Philip Dorsett. They signed Jacob Hollister. They re-signed Bruce Irvin, who was once a Seahawk in the past. They signed Greg Olsen. They're going to be in the mix in that NFC West as well, the Seahawks, because they got Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, fantastic player. He was, at one point, he was the MVP, but then Lamar Jackson just zoomed on by him. So it's going to be great to see what Seattle does. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, obviously. Tom Brady's the biggest one. They got some other ones, Dominican Sue, Jason Pierre-Paul, they re-signed. Shaq Barrett at the franchise tag. But this is about Tom Brady. One of the greatest quarterbacks of all time leaves New England, comes down there. What can Tom do with that team? Well, he's got Chris Godwin, he's got Mike Evans, he's got O.J. Howard and Cameron Bate. He's got 4 weapons that he can toss the ball all around to, and we know Bruce Arians loves the pass. There is some word about Tom Brady's arm strength and throwing the deep ball, but we'll need to wait and see about if his arm strength does affect the deep ball. And if not, I'm sure Bruce Arians can change the offense to where they will do the things that Tom Brady does well. I have all the faith in the world in Bruce Arians doing that. The Tennessee Titans, they placed the franchise tag on Derrick Henry. They re-signed Ryan Tannehill. They agreed to a contract with Vic Beasley from Atlanta and edge rusher. Again, they're going to be in that mix in the AFC South when it comes to all of those players. When it comes to the Texans and the Colts, they're going to be in that mix. And and it's going to be interesting. Can we see if Ryan Tannehill can do it for a full season? What he did in that stretch that he did in those maybe 7-8 games that he played to end the season to get them into the playoffs. You see if Ryan Tannehill can do that. The Redskins, new coach Ron Rivera. Did a lot of things. They signed a lot of former Panthers, traded for a lot of former Panthers. And there's some talk about maybe even though we say Chase Young seems to be the second overall pick, there's some thought that maybe they might even draft Tua and then have have Tua and Haskins and Kyle Allen compete for the jobs. I don't see that happening. So, but again, I think it's going to take 1 year for Chico Ron Rivera to get the players he wants in there and to get the system down. So I don't think they are going to compete for the NFC East this year, but I do think they're going to be more competitive than the Giants. I think they're going to think when they play the Cowboys and when they play the Eagles, it's not just going to be a beatdown from those other guys. It's going to be a hard-hitting effect where you've been in a fight with the Washington Redskins. All right, so that is all 32 teams. We went over free agency, what they've done, who they signed, who they traded for, and we've still got more to come. The date of this recording is the 30th of March, so who knows what else is happening. So we will come back another time and we'll go over it when it's that time. As for right now, make sure that you go to patreon.com/AJTrip to become a Patreon. Make sure that if you are on Anchor FM, we got 3 tiers. If you want to support your boy, a 90-cent tier, a $4.99 tier, and a $9.99 tier. Anything that you support, whether it's on Patreon or whether it's on the FFM subscriptions, anything that you do to support me, I appreciate it so much. So never forget that. Thank you guys so much for listening. I know we have a lot of time on our hands, so thank you guys so much for choosing my podcast to listen to. I will see you guys very, very soon. It's your boy AJ Tripp. Be careful out there, and I am out.